Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about layer masks, which is a feature on Photoshop or Photopea that will allow you to use layers in a little bit more complex of a way. It'll allow you to add two images or more together, but do so in a way where you can continuously edit them, as opposed to if you were to just like erase parts of it where you would never be able to get that back. So I'm going to give you an example of both of those scenarios. We're going to start this off by opening from computer our two files that we'll be using for this unit. First one that we're going to open is the dog in bath JPEG image. Then we're going to go ahead and we are going to open and place the kitten bubbles image so that you have a layer of each of them. Now, if we were editing them like normal, you know my number one step would be to duplicate them. However, because we're using layer masks, when we edit them, we actually won't be doing anything to change the pixels. So I create a layer mask by selecting on my layer, and I'm going to go to this icon down here. It's called a raster mask. Same thing, interchangeable with layer mask. That's the language used in Photoshop. So I add a mask, and what that'll do, clearly, it's not changing up anything that we have yet. I'm going to show you an example of what could work against you in a project. So I'm going to find our eraser tool over here. Eraser. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just start erasing like as if I wanted to show the cat pouncing on the dog. I have a photo here which is asking me to rasterize it, and by that it means it just wants to be editable pixels. So I hit OK. And I could go, erase this as neatly as I can all around. If I took my time on this, I could really um, focus on getting that erased well. But what's going to happen if I wanted that dog to be pushed over a little bit and my cat to be pushed over? Now my cat's floating on a background of nothing, and I don't have a way to get it back. I've erased my pixels and I can never get them back. In this situation, because I have my undo toolbar here, it's okay for me to use that, but really most of the time that you would be using these, you would not be able to get pixels back from your erase tool. So I'm going to go back to where I was before I used that eraser tool, and we're going to look at layer masks now this way. So I'll drag my dog image over, and I do this by hiding my cat image. I'm trying to just line it up. There we go. And my cat image, I'm bringing that back. Okay. Now, at this point in time, you might be saying, what are these white boxes, these raster layers? What are they doing? What's their function? So their function is basically that if the box is white, it will show the full image. Think of it as like white light is shining on it. But if it's black, think of it like it's being hidden. So I can paint areas. For example, I'll do the whole thing black real quick. So I have my layer mask selected, not my layer, but my layer mask. I have my paint bucket tool selected, and I go down to pick my color of black. And now my whole image is hidden because I've dropped my paint bucket tool on that layer mask. However, if you were to do something like using a brush as we have now, now you can see why the layer mask tool might be useful. My opacity is way down, so I'm just gonna scale that up a little bit. You can see why the opacity tool is gonna be useful for you. And if there's a spot that you accidentally deleted like that I didn't mean to, I can go back to my color and change it to white, and I can bring it back. So that's the idea behind layer masks. For this, for our work today, I want you to be experimenting with that. So what I mean by experimenting with it is trying out what select tools work the best. So I'm undoing everything that I've just done in my layer mask so we can start fresh there. When you're using a select tool, and those are these over in this left bar here, you'll notice that there are a couple different types. So for example, I could select the cat with my lasso tool, but it's really hard to get the exact shape of my cat. Then if I were to go in and I'd want to hide it for whatever reason, whoops. You'd see that it's really just not working out well for me. I also just hit a hotkey to move it by accident. So just going back. Your lasso tool is useful in some situations, not all. Your other select tools, rectangular and ellipse, those are also helpful sometimes, but not always. We're gonna try out quick selection, object selection, and magic wand. So under quick selection, and it'll again ask me to rasterize because I just undid rasterization. And raster means it's editable pixels. I'm going in and I'm just hovering over the areas of my cat that were in color. And it looks like I hovered over a little bit too much because it took all of that green space in. If I notice up here in this top bar that the plus and the minus buttons are there, so I can hit minus and I can work on getting that grass color removed. I'm just removing some other parts that don't really belong. And I accidentally took out a little bit of that face, so let me just get that back in there. All right. So now I have the cat selected. I'm going to want to select the opposite of the cat, or the inverse, the background. That way I can paint the background. So I'm going to go to select, inverse. Now I have my brush black selected as my primary color. I'll click on my layer mask, scaling my brush down a little. And we can see that it will remove successfully the image while leaving the cat intact. There might be some parts of the cat that come off, and those we could touch up later with the brush tool by hand. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna move my dog over so that my cat's actually jumping at something real. Whoops. I still had my cat selected while that happened, so it went crazy on me. I'm gonna deselect that first just by clicking on the select tool and clicking off the page, or I can do Control or Command D to deselect. Now when I move the two, I get our dog, I get our cat. This would be the point in time where you know you don't want to have an image that is totally deleted, because now we have this, this background visible. Let's bring that back through the use of our brush tool and the white. You may be thinking ahead, you could also use the clone tool to copy this, this part of the wall and the tub. So I'm going in, my opacity is a little bit low right now. So I'm just going multiple passes, but I think it's better to go multiple times than to go all at once, because you can just focus on one area a little bit more. And there we have it. We have our cat well selected, brought into our other image. We can edit it if we need to, as we need to. Other things you can do with layer masks. You can delete them. So for example, I'm typically able to drag this down and delete it. In Photoshop, you are able to. In this, I'll find the way that you would delete it, but it should be fairly intuitive. There we go, dragging it to the trash barrel. You can also move your layer mask. So for example, if I click on this chain, that won't link it to my original image anymore. I'm clicking just to remove that selection, and I can now bring this layer mask that I had elsewhere on the page. Now this can make some cool effects visually. Realistically, not what we're going for right now, but it can be a cool effect to keep in mind how you modify layer effects in the future, especially for our dual exposures. Lastly, the other select tool that you may find, whoops, that's just dragging our layer mask to our trash. The other way that you may find helpful is by using the object selection tool. This requires an object to be clearly defined from the background. So, for example, my cat is pretty different than the background. This didn't do the best job of it. Some of them do a great job of selecting one particular thing. I can test it out by going into my layer mask. We're gonna have to select the inverse of our selection, because right now I've only selected the cat, which is why I didn't do anything. So I've selected now everything but the cat by going to select an inverse. This right here, this means that I'm clicking on my original image. This means that I'm clicking on my mask. So it came out kind of all right for an automatic tool, and we could go in and touch it up ourselves, or you can just use that quick select tool from the beginning. So your goal in this project is to work this photo in a way where it looks like the cat is jumping at the dog in the same exact picture, okay? Once you have that complete, you can go to File, Export as JPG, save your image to your OneDrive account. For me right now, it's just saving as Dog and Bath JPG. You'll rename that because that'll be the same exact name as the file that you opened in the first place. So I could rename it Dog and Bath Attack, Dog and Bath 2, whatever will help me memorize that. And then we'll wait until the end of our unit on Friday to submit that. This gives you the taste of layer masks, how to combine multiple images, and how to use some of those select tools.